Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein. Thanks for joining me again this week. I hope everyone had a great week. This is the 58th installment of my weekly virtual office hour address. And people continue to say that they like these live stream addresses and hearing from their mayor every week. So I will be continuing them to the end of shelter in place and probably a lot longer. We've now reached 403 days, so we passed the 400-day point. After the March 16th, 2020 county health order started the whole shelter in place and was a real attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19. And since that declaration, a lot has happened. A lot seems to happen almost every day. A year ago, I thought it'd be great to convert my weekly office coffee shop office hours into a live stream event. And I haven't missed a Friday since the beginning, but these virtual office hours are great because they allow me to give you some updates, answer some of your questions, and provide some general words of encouragement. From people's response, they still say that they like hearing from their mayor. And so I just want to thank you for allowing me to continue to represent you and to work for Sunnyvale during ever changing times. I hope everyone is doing well, staying healthy. Please remember to take care of yourself, both mentally and physically, and check in on your neighbors when you can. Things are, the weather is good. People are finally starting to get out and back into their community. People are being vaccinated. So, but it's still difficult times for many of us. And, doing outreach, just checking in on your neighbors does really help. So keep following the county health orders. Do your part to stop the spread of the virus. Wash your hands, don't touch your face, reduce the number of people that you're coming in contact with. Maintain safe social distance when you're out. Wear your mask, and of course, get your vaccination when it's your time. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about what's happened at the federal, state, county, and city level over the last 2 weeks. So last Tuesday, the federal government requested a pause on J&J vaccinations, and this was as a result of 6 women who had a rare cases of blood clotting and one death, and so they'd already distributed about 7 million J&J vaccines, and the state stopped our county quickly stopped distributing J&J. I myself got the J&J about 3 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago today actually. So I'm fully vaccinated, but I think it made a lot of sense, as they continue to evaluate the effects of J&J, and from that standpoint, we'll see where we stand as far as J&J, but we've had a lot more Pfizer, Moderna, so that's been positive that we've actually been able to get more vaccinations out into our communities right now. So we'll see where things go with that. And then last Tuesday, Santa Clara County Health and county officials announced that we are receiving tens of thousands of additional COVID-19 vaccines from the federal government. And, that allocation is about 200,000 new doses of the vaccine. And ultimately, that allowed the county to move to being able to provide anyone that's 16 years of age or older, making it eligible within Santa Clara County for them to get vaccinated. And that was 2 days earlier than what the state was going to do, which was April 15th. So, because we had additional doses, and we've had, let's say, ongoing issues with the state of getting the vaccines, that ultimately we were getting percentage based on population. The state changed that, and because of other holdups, it was actually better for us to work with our federal representatives. So I just want to thank, Ro Khanna, Anna Eshoo, Zoe Lofgren, a lot of our federal representatives that dealt with the federal government and pushed to get these vaccines. So these are federal doses that are going directly to the county, and it's about if I remember, 250,000 Pfizer and about 40,000 Moderna. But it makes a big difference. A few days later, we vaccinated over 12,000 people in one day at Levi Stadium, and so that's been a fantastic effort, and and we've set up. And the good thing from the county standpoint is we've been setting up vaccine distribution very well from a county standpoint for the last multiple months. And it's just been getting those doses, getting those vaccines, and then working with the state. The state had tried to let's say reapportion a lot of this based upon equity, but it was all based upon equity and zip codes. So even though census tracts in certain of our county were some of the hardest hit areas from a COVID standpoint, in low income areas, and but it wasn't the entire zip code, and so the state reduced those numbers dramatically as far as the number of vaccines that we were getting. So the state's been only giving us about 50 to 70,000 doses a week, and so ultimately the federal government came through, and we've seen a lot more people that have been vaccinated in the last week or 2 weeks. So it's actually been positive from that standpoint. And just as a reminder, the county health also focused on making sure that we're doing as much multilingual outreach as possible. So not just English, but Spanish, Vietnamese, Chinese, Mandarin, Cantonese, Tagalog, Tagalog. But it's important that anyone who wants to get a vaccine can in any language can call 211 or go to sccfreevax.org to figure out. There's a portal there that will get you to any of your healthcare providers, Stanford, Palo Alto, El Camino Health, or one of the county sites, or also Walgreens and CVS, which has also been actually providing a lot of vaccines. So they're Walgreens and CVS, Costco, they're getting their vaccines directly from the federal government, much like the county is now getting a mix from the state and the federal government. And so I myself got vaccinated at Walgreens. So wherever you can, please, I know it's been difficult. It's been a little bit easier in the last week. So hopefully you are getting your vaccine, have got your first shot, or on your way to your second shot. And then last Tuesday, Sunnyvale Library reopened for in-service operations. So I know that there's a long line of residents waiting to go inside. And the current hours are Tuesday through Saturday from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. And just a reminder, everyone needs to be masked. Don't visit if you have any COVID-19 symptoms or anything of that nature. If you're not feeling well, don't go to the library. But it's at least allowed people to kind of go through the stacks and feel books, touch books, go through and figure out what they want, not just checking out from online and picking up. And the number of people inside the library is currently limited to only 50. So only 50 at a time, and staff will be monitoring that at the door. And then to minimize the amount of time that people spend indoors, there's a request that you only are inside for a maximum of 30 minutes. And then, while you're inside, wear your mask, maintain safe social distancing. There's also hand sanitizer throughout the library, so you can continue to wash your hands. And then, of course, just to kind of maintain that safe social distancing and make sure people aren't there for too long. They've removed all the tables and chairs, and then all the technology center, the PCs, the scanners are currently unavailable to residents who want to attend or want to visit the library. So, but I did go and was able to pick up a few books and roam through the stacks a little bit. So it was good from that standpoint. To that we're starting to reopen some of those services. And then last Thursday, let's see, on Thursday, the governor said that, of course, all residents from a statewide standpoint, all residents 16 years of age and older are now qualified to get vaccinated. So that was, a positive thing. And the governor focused a lot on schools and, that California should reopen all schools by the fall for in-person learning. And so this was through the guidelines. It's still there'll be an expectation of opening most schools. It's not a mandate, and this will be the thing of what the guidelines are and working with the teachers unions, trying to figure out what vaccinations look like in the fall. Governor Newsom also proposed extending the school year, and that hasn't been completely well received. The governor talked about extending the school year to June 1st or June 15th. But he made it clear that he won't, order classrooms to open. But they've continued to dangle financial incentives to the school districts to say, if you open, here's what we can do as far as pay for all the needs of cleaning and additional services that are required because of COVID-19. And a lot of that work a lot of our schools have moved into at least hybrid, so having children in the classrooms at least several days a week. So that's been positive, and I've been talking to a lot of the school supervisors, superintendents, or the school board members about what they're doing, what their different schools are doing. So glad to see our children are going back to school. Some reluctantly, but I think getting back into the classroom and seeing their friends. I think missing that social interaction. I think that's one of the hardest things of remote learning is not seeing your friends, not having that social interaction, which is critical to so many people. So we'll see where we stand, when the school year ends and the new school year begins in the fall. And then last Saturday was the kickoff to Earth Week here in Sunnyvale, and we've had a virtual celebration all week. And this year's focus was on the Gourmet Earth Week. So there's been a lot of food related things, from composting to cooking with the chef Tony from Goombas, how to composting, induction cooking. And so we had, of course, last Sunday was the cook-off competition. So it was a cook-off for climate. Had me cooking against several city staff members. So I didn't win, but I actually had a lot of fun using an induction burner, and coming up with a tasty dish. So I was actually, for those of you that didn't see it, it was actually I was actually impressed with myself, going through a recipe and coming up with, an avocado kind of basil pasta, avocado pesto cream pasta with, cherry tomatoes and all that. So it actually was a lot of fun, and actually a good afternoon, showing off my cooking skills, but also, showing how easy and safe induction cooking is. So, we have in our house, we don't have an induction cooking stovetop, but we have an extra burner that we use inside and outside. And it's especially good on outside when, on a summer day, you don't want to be inside the kitchen. So going into your backyard and cooking is perfect here in Sunnyvale when those beautiful days in the summertime. And so, or especially if it's something that's greasy like fried chicken or something similar, an induction burner is perfect to do outside, because it keeps, it helps keep the oil a lot more exact as far as a temperature standpoint than other than gas. But it also, all those fumes, all that heat is just being expelled as opposed to being inside your home. So anyway, it was a good day, and there's still events that are going on. You can go to YouTube to see any of the video that's been online. There's been several discussions. There was an EV clinic, so it definitely take a look at those if you get a chance. And then on Saturday, it was also uh, Charles Street Gardens spring plant sale, and so for a lot of people don't know that Sunnyvale does have a community garden. So definitely it's right at Charles and Olive, right near the library and City Hall. But they had their spring plant sale, and ultimately they did very well. Though I think they'll be having a few more pop-up sales in the next month or so. I know some people missed them, but they're looking to have a few more events just to try to, well, for one thing, get sell some of the seedlings that they created, and I think that's one of the positive things is they're self-sustaining. It's all the money that they raise from the people in the garden, as well as selling plants and things of that nature that help sustain that garden and build all the beds that were there. That's been in the city for about 15 years now. I was one of the founding members to help build some of those beds way back at the beginning. But it's actually been a very positive experience, hearing from some of the people that are tending their beds, and there's chickens, and it's great for a visit if you get a chance. And then on Tuesday of this week, I reached a personal milestone. I reached, the 200th restaurant or food truck that I reviewed as mayor. So that mayor's project that I started over a year ago now, uh, basically reached 200 restaurants on the 400th day of shelter in place. So on average, every other day for the last year, or for more than the last year, I've been visiting restaurants, meeting the owners, meeting the workers, and finding out the variety, that diversity of food that exists in our city, that reflects the diversity of people and cultures that we also have here. So it's been actually a lot of fun, and I'll continue to do that. There's always a new restaurant popping up, or there are places that I still haven't made it to. So to go through those reviews, you can go to www.eatsunnyvale.com, and I'm currently having someone work on that web page to create a more user-friendly site where you have some features that people have asked about, but right now you can kind of go through and page through those 200 reviews. So, and I'll be expanding that in the next few weeks, kind of going beyond some of the standard restaurants. I know that we have some home-based food locations within the city, so people that do baked goods at home and distribute them. And then there's other things like there's a brewery that's recently opened in the last year, and a few other things that are also not specifically food, but definitely items that are being made here in Sunnyvale, which I think are really positive. And then Tuesday evening, council had a very long evening council meeting, and we went past midnight. We started out with a study session, and this was by VTA coming to present to us on the Tasman Drive Complete Streets Corridor Study. And this was started back in 2017, as far as trying to envision how to make, for one thing, Vision Zero, but making sure that Tasman corridor between San Jose, Santa Clara, and actually starting even as far as Milpitas, into Sunnyvale, ultimately look good and are safe for pedestrians, for bikes. What kind of features, landscaping is needed, safe bike lanes. And so this was a preliminary update on that. I think the important thing is trying to figure out what we can do from a city standpoint and partnering with VTA to go for certain grant funding. It's connecting certain from Tasman, there's not a good trail connection down to the Calabasas Trail. And so, it's figuring out what to do along that corridor. The city has its own study issue that we're currently evaluating for that Tasman corridor, mainly between Fair Oaks and Lawrence, trying to look at improving, a bike lane or a sidewalk, especially for those areas that don't have sidewalks. So hopefully that will be moving forward, but in the background, but it's kind of working with VTA to try to figure out, can VTA drive a portion of this also. And then for that meeting, we had several special orders of the day. April is Asian American Heritage Month, and so it was good to have one of our Heritage Commission commissioners come in, David Wu, and talk about some of the Asian heritage right here in Sunnyvale. So that was a good way to start that meeting. We also kicked off a May event, which is Affordable Housing Month, and so we had someone from SV at Home come and speak to talk about all the events that are happening during May. It used to be Affordable Housing Week, but now that there's so many things that are virtual and people can remote connect to them, ultimately it's now Affordable Housing Month. So it's good from that standpoint. And lastly, April is Earthquake Preparedness Month, and so we had someone from our CERT team come in and talk about all the different programs that we have. So if you haven't went through our SNAP program, our CERT program, haven't had a PEP, there's multiple programs there. Definitely being prepared is critical. And actually, last Saturday was also a graduation of one of our CERT program events. So we had about 15 people graduate, and usually the class is a little bit bigger than that, usually above 30, but a lot of this was learning how to run that program, and it's usually all in person, but how to run that program under COVID has been a little bit different. But it's about an 8-week program, and it's very worthwhile. I went through it about 5 or 6 years ago, and I actually go back every now and then and volunteer. I'm a wounded victim that during their last day of the class, they have an exercise where they're dealing with a simulated emergency and dealing with victims and how they do triage and all that. So it's actually really good, and it's good to go back and still be involved in that, and thanks to all the it's run through public safety, but public safety working with a lot of really great CERT volunteers to make sure that program runs smoothly for many years now. And then as far as Tuesday night's general meeting, we had a lot of, several items that we went through, but I think the biggest one was an update on our housing strategy discussion for the Sunnyvale Mobile Home Park Memorandum of Understanding. If you remember this, we talked about this in the fall. Council decided not to go with basically an ordinance, an immediate ordinance, but work with creating an MOU. And so bringing the stakeholders together of the landlords and the residents in our mobile home communities. And Sunnyvale has over 400 acres of mobile home communities, and that's required according to our general plan. But we had lots of feedback from the residents and from the park owners, and giving us feedback on how it's gone, and we've made a lot of good progress since January. Ultimately, there are a few things that they still need to resolve, but staff was really positive, and the residents were relatively positive about definitely there are things that they still want, but a lot of the issues have already been resolved, and so we'll see end of June, beginning of July, how that MOU is going. We can always define an ordinance from a city standpoint, but it's actually better that if you have all the stakeholders come to an agreement, it's better than the city trying to figure out what that compromise is, because too often that compromise means that both the residents and the stakeholders and the landlords are not happy. So we'll see where that goes. And then we also had a discussion on the project alternatives for the EIR for um, the Mary Overpass. And so we've talked about this before. There's 5 different designs, that were discussed. It's 4 lanes of car traffic plus bike and ped, 2 lanes of car traffic plus bike and ped, uh, 2 lanes of HOV, high occupancy vehicles, shuttles, and bike and ped, a bike and ped bridge only, or no project at all. And so those are the 5 designs that will be studied. And because of some state laws, we do need to choose a project alternative. And so as opposed to just saying, okay, we're going to study all 5, we did need to choose one to be kind of the prioritized project. But ultimately, from a legal standpoint, had to be done. Council ended up choosing option 3, which was the bike and ped with 2 lanes of HOV, high occupancy vehicles. And I think to me that's a good compromise. We had some council members saying that let's go for 2 lanes or 4 lanes of traffic because it'll get the most impact, or it'll get the most feedback from residents who said, those especially along Mary Avenue, who don't want any additional traffic, and so bringing them up to speak their mind. And I think that sets, a bad, ultimately sets a bad expectation. I think hearing too often that the city isn't listening to the residents, and I think ultimately we heard many years ago that having 2 lanes of traffic there or 4 lanes of traffic isn't what the residents want, because of the effects to those neighborhoods south of Central Expressway. But it is important, I think, to evaluate HOV. We're trying to do mode shift and bike and ped are good, but the easier we make it for bus transportation, whether or not that's VTA buses or shuttles for businesses, and ultimately, since we're looking for conceivably adding housing into Moffett Park, making sure that easy access or easy commutes from Moffett Park into Sunnyvale, whether or not that's to the Caltrain station, so it's is also an easy sort of thing. So we'll see where things go, but I do think that was the best option. It's not the final decision as far as the project is concerned. The EIR, the draft EIR, will now be created now that we've chosen the project alternative. And then we go through more outreach. We do the EIR, look at traffic studies, and then come back to council with the full EIR after getting input from residents, from all the different, VTA, different surrounding communities, what mitigation measures would need to go in. And then we'll ultimately choose, most likely the way things are, end of this year, beginning of next year, what the preferred option is for the Mary Overpass. So that's kind of how that process ultimately goes. And then on Wednesday of this week, Governor Newsom had a press conference. He was actually standing in the dry, cracked bottom of Lake Mendocino. And so it was basically to declare a drought emergency for Mendocino and Sonoma counties. And while that, only targeted Mendocino and Sonoma, the drought condition, where definitely drought conditions are bad, the governor didn't declare a statewide emergency, and definitely there are some officials and farmers, especially in the Central Valley, that they'd hoped that it went a lot farther. The governor did say that a broader drought declaration could come as conditions continue to change, and California is in its 2nd year of drought, and probably bracing for another devastating wildfire season after having very little rain this winter. But it's defining a drought, a statewide condition of drought, and what needs to be done. The governor didn't want to jump on that too quickly, and I think definitely there are detractors on both sides, but I think part of it was in response to the recall, and that was the other thing is it's definitely uh, the drought and how we respond is and how we is part of that recall because the recall does look like it's likely. We'll probably hear some final declaration, I think, by this time next week. They're still validating signatures, but it looks like that recall would be scheduled for sometime in November, sometime near Thanksgiving. And the drought conditions, the declaration of drought restrictions, and people's response to that is just one of the many minefields that the governor is looking at. How the COVID response continues, and whatever additional issues might occur between now and that recall election. So it will be kind of interesting to see how this goes along. But definitely those people in Central Valley are wanting an emergency rule so that they relax some environmental restrictions in order to increase water deliveries within that Central Valley. And wildfire dangers continue to increase, and however you stress the residents conceivably also stresses the vote against the governor, and I think that's one of the things that he's definitely worried about. And then today, or later this morning, Santa Clara County will reach a significant milestone. They'll have 1 million residents in Santa Clara County will have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. So there'll be a press conference later, but it's important for everyone to continue to get vaccinated, and it's important to continue those strategies to distribute as many vaccines, and especially giving vaccine access to those communities that have been impacted by COVID-19, and doing outreach into those communities however we can. And so, if you need to get vaccinated, please go to secfreevax.org and find out, where you can sign up, get your appointment, and hopefully get vaccinated. So hopefully you people are already doing that. Okay, let's go ahead and get to our weekly numbers like we do every week on testing, on hospitalization, of course, vaccinations. Nationally, those hospitalizations are still on the rise, and especially around the world, we're seeing nations where those are surging. But from a national standpoint, their new COVID cases are up about another 500,000. So it's about 500,000 new cases a week. We're at 31.7 million cases of COVID. And then nationally, we've surpassed 219 million vaccines administered. And so that's a positive thing. On the negative side, we've had over 566,000 deaths, another 5,000 in the last week, all related to COVID. So people are still getting sick. People are still hospitalized, and we'll talk about local hospitalizations in a second. And then from a California standpoint, we've had 3.6 million positive cases, and so we're still doing very well. We have, I think, the second lowest case rate in the nation. I think we're just behind Hawaii, so we're having about 2,000 cases a day now, based upon our population. That's fantastic. So between vaccinations and people wearing masks, things are looking very well from a California standpoint right now. But there are new variants that are coming, and hopefully people are continue to be safe as we go into the summertime. And from a positive note, we've distributed about 26 million vaccinations. That's about 2 million in the last week. So from a California standpoint, and comparing us to the rest of the nation, we're number 11th. We were number 13th on states with residents with at least one dose. So that's around 45% of our population has received at least one dose, and we're still at least for those that are residents that are fully vaccinated, we're still around 30, 30, 31. We were 33 last week. So, definitely we still have a ways to go. 27% of our residents have been fully vaccinated. But it's going to be, it's going to be a while before everyone gets vaccinated. And then as far as new cases from a county standpoint, we've had 117,000 cases. That's up about another 1,000 in the last week. We've had 2,025 deaths, and we still have about 70 people that are are hospitalized because of COVID. So the positive thing is, of course, we have about 500 and no, yeah, 550,000 people have been fully vaccinated. That's about 34% of our residents, and over almost 1 million. I think today is the day that we'll break 1 million with at least one dose within the county. So about 61% of our residents will have one dose. So things are looking relatively good. I continue to do a lot of advocating on your behalf, especially at the county level. Continue our discussions with the county supervisors and county health. As for testing, the mobile county mobile pop-up van is back, or is in Sunnyvale on the second and fourth Mondays at Murphy Park, and they're here this coming Monday from 9:30 to 4 p.m. So April 28th. If people should still get tested, vaccines aren't 100%, no matter what the vaccine is. And so if you want to get tested this Monday, go to sccfreetest.org, and there you can get tested. And then, and as far as the county mobile vaccination bus was at Columbia Neighborhood Center again this past Wednesday. They delivered another 500 doses to those in need, and especially some of our unhoused folks or have got some vaccinations this week. So remember to, if you need to register to get vaccinated, go to sccfreevax.org, or you can always call 211, and especially for different languages, that support is available there. Let me go ahead and talk about some upcoming events. So it'll be a few weeks before our next council meeting. That's on May 4th, and it'll start with several study sessions, mainly talking about cultural inclusion study and plan, and then kind of our economic development strategy, which especially during a budget year, I think it'll be a good overview of what our economic plans are. And then as far as our main meeting, we'll go through our redistricting outreach plan and meeting schedule. Keep in mind that the redistricting commission that we created will be taking applications until the end of May. So if you want to get more involved, that's kind of where we'll start talking about that meeting timeline and what outreach has already been completed. And then we'll also be approving our 2021 Housing and Urban Development Action Plan, which is what we do on a yearly basis, talking about what we're going to do as far as housing is concerned. May 20th, so less than a month away, is our all-day budget session. And that's actually really good because that's where we talk about all the next year's budget and make some difficult decisions. And as much as things are kind of getting back to normal, definitely we've had some revenue hits within a city standpoint, and ultimately looking for what we can do to make some decisions as far as services and what services to cut back on and what services that we can kind of add back in. Okay, let's go ahead and get to some of our weekly questions. Shruti asked, what is the rationale behind having registered voter requirements for certain boards and commissions? For example, the Sustainability Commission has this requirement for residents interested in serving. However, this is not the case for the Arts Commission or the new Redistricting Commission. If the purpose of these boards and commissions is to encourage community participation, shouldn't all tax-paying members of this community have equal opportunity to apply? Our community has a sizable population of individuals who are on their path to citizenship. Unfortunately, the immigration backlog for certain counties is so tedious that it takes decades to get citizenship, thereby become registered voters. In the meantime, these individuals are paying property taxes, supporting local businesses, and raising children who are American citizens. How can they get involved? So, thank you, Shruti. I totally agree. And, this is something that I've been working on for a while now. And, and we'll talk about what the differences are between some of our boards and commissions. But, but, and what I've been wanting to do is two things, especially getting non-citizens, non-registered voters involved, and also youth at 18, and being a registered voter at 18 shouldn't be a barrier. Definitely, opening it up to conceivably 16-year-olds that want to get involved in our boards and commissions makes total sense. And so we actually have a council subcommittee meeting in the next month to talk about our boards and commissions. But let me talk about why there are some differences. And we just talked about redistricting. When we were defining our redistricting, that was a little bit different. But there are 5 boards and commissions that were created by city charter back in the 80s. It's the Personnel Board, the Planning Commission, the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Board of Library Trustees, and the Heritage Preservation Commission. So those were created by charter. And so that's the important thing is, we're a charter city, and those, all the requirements, when that charter was put in place, when that charter amendment was put in place, required that all members be registered voters. And in order to change that requirement, there would actually need to be a new charter amendment, which would be a vote that we would have to take to the residents. And so there would be a cost as far as that's concerned. We do some cleanup every few years from a charter standpoint. It will probably be mentioned when we go to our board and commission subcommittee. And there are certain boards and commissions which are like have additional members that aren't within the city, but one of the things that being registered to vote was well, we showed that you're civic minded, but it was also easier for the city clerk at that time to say that, oh, you're registered, you have a valid address within the city. And so it became easier for the city clerk to qualify and make sure that potential applicants are residents of the city, because that's usually one of the issues that are one of the requirements for all these boards. Although a few of them have you work in the city, like the Bicycle Pedestrian Advocacy Commission are also for people that commute here, that conceivably bike to the city. So anyway, so council could eliminate that requirement for being a registered voter for those other 5. So you have the 5 that I listed that are part of the charter, but other commissions that don't have that that aren't part of the charter that we've added later, much like the art commission and all that, we could get rid of that requirement. But for a lot of these commissions, that is a requirement as far as being a registered voter, because from an application process mainly. And that will just conceivably require us to change that policy. I do think that it makes sense to try to reach out, because we have people that own homes here that have lived here for 20 or 30 years, but don't want to go through the process of becoming a U.S. citizen. They still go back to their previous country, and they want to maintain that residency. And so for them to be able to give back to the community, and anyone could show up to any of these commission meetings, give their feedback and influence that process. So you can still be part of that process even if you're not on that commission. But it is a good way to actually be part of that. And so we'll see where our subcommittee discussions go. But that was, that was one of the reasons why when we were defining the new redistricting commission, we had a longer discussion about the ability to vote and, residency and all that. And that's one of the reasons why when we were creating that new commission, we didn't make that as a requirement. So anyone can basically apply for the redistricting commission. Okay, another question John asked, and it's kind of on that same note. How can I volunteer with the city? And I get this question quite often. And our boards and commissions are a great way for Sunnyvale Council and the city to get citizens' input on policies, on issues, and kind of craft, new directions. And so members serve, it's basically a volunteer basis appointed by city council. It's normally a 4-year term, unless you're finishing a partial term of another council member. And that recruitment is currently underway. If you are interested in one of our 10 commissions, and so that's the Art Commission, Bicycle Pedestrian Advocacy, Board of Building Code Appeals, Board of Library Trustees, Heritage Preservation, Housing and Human Services, Parks and Rec, Personnel Board, Planning Commission, Sustainability Commission, that application deadline is a week from today, so April 30th at 5 p.m. So you still have plenty of time. If you go to, and actually I published a link on my Facebook page earlier today on how people can apply and where you can get more information. So or go to the Sunnyvale website and search for boards and commissions, and they'll list all the different positions that are open and what the requirements are for each of those commissions. And so you have an application to fill out, and then there will be interviews that will happen mid-May. So definitely, if you're interested, please apply. Next up, Andrea asked, when you do your Friday morning live chats, you're often standing in front of a piece of artwork. I'm from the art club, and I would gladly arrange for a new piece weekly if you were interested. So hey, Andrea, that was a great idea. So yes, you can see the art that's behind me. That was from, my wife and I did before COVID yearly international trips. We try to do at least one a year since we started dating. And it's been really positive to see the world, get exposed to different cultures and foods and ultimately conceivably bring back a piece of art. So that the art behind me was done and picked up in Santiago de Cuba. So it was our trip to Cuba a few years ago. And we have, multiple pieces of art within our house that we picked up on our travels. And so you will be seeing that change in the next week or two as we start showing some of the art club pieces. And we do that same thing at the mayor's office. I don't make it to the mayor's office as much, but the art club basically changes the art in the mayor's office on a monthly basis. And so it'll be good to have that change on a weekly basis right here at home. So hopefully you'll see my backdrop change a little bit in the coming weeks. One question I got is, why have they cut down all the trees at City Hall? So between City Hall and Olive, they actually moved a lot of those trees. All the trees that they could save, they moved to other locations on the campus. Right now, there's a big hole because they've started on the new City Hall, and so the underground parking is being designed, or the hole for the underground parking and the new foundation is being built right now. And so all the trees that used to be right there along Olive, and they've kept them as you're going closer to the library. They've kept some where the underground parking isn't, but a lot of those trees that were right in front where the flagpoles are, the flagpoles have all been removed, and there's a big hole there for those of you who haven't been by there. But we moved a lot of very large trees to other locations on the campus. So if you go to the corner at Matilda and El Camino, and Matilda and All America Way, you can see some of those large trees. We moved two 250,000 ton trees. So anyway, we'll continue. And question that I've been getting for the last few weeks: when will you restart your in-person office hours? So this live stream event was preceded by about 3 years of Friday morning office hours at being seen on Murphy Avenue. I will be restarting those intermittently. So if people want to meet with the mayor, definitely reach out and we can start setting up some of those 15-minute or 30-minute meetings at the coffee shop. Most likely it'll be right after this meeting. So after this meeting, I'll be heading downtown to Murphy Avenue to meet up with people for an hour or so. So anyway, if you're interested, definitely reach out and we can sit down and talk one-on-one on whatever the issues are. But it'll all be outside on our alfresco during our alfresco dining. Joanna asked, when will the picnic ground reservations reopen? So those reservations reopened last week, and we already had like 50 reservations in the first few days, or sorry, 500 reservations in the first week for people that were wanting to reserve picnics around Sunnyvale and starting to plan for outdoor activities, birthday parties, and other events with their families. So that's already started. So you can go to the city website, and if you search for parks or picnics, you can find those and sign up to reserve. And Josh asked, and I'll bring this up again this week, will there be an art and wine festival this year? Yes, that's currently being reserved for October 2nd and 3rd, so the first weekend in October, so you can start planning as far as that's concerned. Let's go ahead and wrap up. We're getting to the end, getting to the top of the hour. So I just want to say thank you for joining me again this week, and enjoy some much needed rain on this weekend. So hopefully you'll be staying dry. But as always, I just want to say I'm proud of Sunnyvale's response to the pandemic. Life continues to be difficult for so many of us. New issues come up, but your actions have made a difference. So wear your mask, get your vaccine, continue to assist others, and build community wherever you can. I'm really proud to see Sunnyvale residents pulling together to help those in need, help their neighbors, sharing what they have, and just being good citizens. So if you're out on a walk, wave, say hello from a safe social distance. People miss that social interaction. Sunnyvale will emerge from this as a stronger community. We're in this together. We will get through this together. Thanks for listening. To everyone, continue to wear your mask, get vaccinated, and stay safe. Have a great week. Goodbye.